Discoveries. My name is Thu Huynh, nutritionist for Giant. In this first class of our Delicious Discovery series, we're going to talk about why liquids turn into solids, aka freezing point, and the impact that it has on food. And fun, we're going to learn this by making homemade frozen yogurt. So in this recorded class, I'm going to ask some questions to get our minds thinking. Now, I know that I can't hear you, so feel free to pause the video after these questions and have a discussion with those around you. But before we begin, how many of you know what a nutritionist is? Well, a nutritionist is someone who knows a lot about food and how it keeps us healthy. We also know some food science too, which is super cool because we learn how food is made and things that affect it. So not only can we teach people what foods will help them to be strong, but we can also teach them why it helps them to be strong. And this is such a fun job because I get to talk to so many different people all the time, like you today. So let's go ahead and grab an adult, your materials, your thinking caps, and let's get started. So for today's class, we're first going to go through the materials that we'll need for our delicious discovery. Then it's activity time. We're going to do our food science experiment. We're going to learn and we're going to have some fun. And then when our experiment is complete, you'll be able to eat it while we talk about what science actually happened. And then lastly, we are going to wrap up this lesson with an overview of what we learned. But before we begin, there's a couple questions I want you to keep in mind throughout this class. Feel free to write down these questions and circle your answers, or you can go ahead and just shout it out. At the end of the class, we're going to revisit these same questions to see how much we've learned. So I have 4 questions for you. Are you ready? Question number 1. At what temperature do you think the yogurt will turn into frozen yogurt? Question number 2. What do you think the salt will do to the ice? Question number 3. What food group does yogurt belong to? And question number 4, how can yogurt help us to be healthy? So go ahead and put your answers aside. We'll come back to it at the end of the class. So today we are going to be making homemade frozen yogurt. So let's see what we'll need for our delicious discovery. First, we're gonna need 2 freezer bags. So we're gonna need one that's a gallon size, so a big one. And we're gonna need one that's a quart size, so a little bit smaller. Next, we're gonna need a food thermometer. So this is a food thermometer. If you don't have one, that's perfectly fine. You could just follow along with the video. Next, we're gonna need some salt. We'll need some ice. Then you can also get some optional toppings for your frozen yogurt, which we'll talk about later on in this class. And then lastly, we're going to need a tub of yogurt. So make sure you have all your materials in front of you for our delicious discovery. All right, so when it comes to our yogurt, you can either buy a flavored yogurt, or what I did was I bought a plain yogurt and added fresh fruit to it, like berries, and then I mixed it in for some flavor. Does anyone know why I chose to do this? Well, sometimes when we buy yogurt that already has flavor, it might be high in something. Anyone know what it is? Sugar, right. So when we buy food with extra flavors, we just want to make sure it doesn't have too much sugar. And you can tell by looking at a nutrition label on the back of the package and using the percent daily value. So on the screen right here, you can see a nutrition facts label. What we want to do is look for that added sugar. That's right there under the total sugars. Then we want to zip right over there to the right and look at that percent daily value. So anything that's close to 20% is high, anything close to 5% is low. So for things that we don't want to eat too much of, like added sugars, we want this number to be closer to that 5%. And too much sugar can be bad for our bodies for many reasons. What are some of those reasons? Well, it can cause cavities, right? It can also fill us up so we're not hungry for more nutritious foods. But besides sugar, there's also another nutrient we want to be on the lookout for when choosing our yogurt. Do you know what that is? Fat. So too much saturated fat can damage our hearts because it makes our heart have to work harder to pump blood all around our bodies. So whatever yogurt you choose, we just want to make sure that it's either low fat or fat free. Okay, now that we got that covered, let's get to our delicious discovery. To talk about the science today, we had to make our frozen yogurt first. It's time to have some fun. All right, so before we measure out our yogurt, let's pull out our food thermometers. When we use a food thermometer, notice that there's a little dimple on the long metal part. We want to make sure we put the thermometer all the way to the dimple right here. But make sure that this tip doesn't go through and touch anything besides the yogurt. We want to make sure it's still in the yogurt. So now we are going to take the temperature of the yogurt and go ahead and write down this number. We're going to compare it to the temperature at the end of the experiment. So go ahead and take some time to do that. I'm going to open my yogurt and I'm going to turn it on. Make sure you stick that right in past the dimple and check out that number that you're getting. So I'm getting around like 45 degrees. What about you guys? All right, make sure you write that down. So now we're going to put about 1 to 2 cups of yogurt into this small bag right here. And as you can see, we are using a dry measuring cup. This one over here is a liquid measuring cup. So when you're using a dry measuring cup, you want to use it for dry ingredients, and the liquid is for liquid ingredients. Measuring something like yogurt, though, can be a little bit confusing because it's both a solid and it's also kind of liquidy. So which measuring cup do you think we should use? Right, the dry one. So anything that we can scoop, we want to use a dry measuring cup. So let's use our dry measuring cup to measure out 1 to 2 cups of our yogurt into the Ziploc bag. Before we measure that out though, I just wanted to say that sometimes when we're measuring dry or liquid ingredients, it's really important to get the exact measurement because it can ruin the final product if you don't. This is especially true in baking. So if you've ever done any cookies or breads or anything like that. So heads up, we are going to have a delicious discoveries class that's all about the science of baking. So make sure you register for that one to see why exact measurements are so important. But sometimes in our cooking and in this experiment today, it's okay to not measure exactly 1 to 2 cups, just something close to it. It won't ruin the experiment. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to take my spoon. I'm going to measure out 1 to 2 cups. Now this is just going to be me eating the yogurt today, so I'm just going to do 1 cup. But if your whole family is there wanting some frozen yogurt, then you can go ahead and do 2 cups. So we're going to put it in our small Ziploc bag. Dump it on in there. All right. And then make sure you seal that one right up. There we go. So next in the big bag, we're going to combine the ice and salt. Do you have any idea why we add salt to the ice? Well, we'll talk about what the salt does to the ice in a minute. So let's take this large bag We're gonna add our ice, and we just want enough ice to cover that smaller bag of yogurt once we put it in. So just put in some ice right there, and then sprinkle in some salt. So you can put in about a tablespoon of salt. But again, the exact measurement doesn't really matter in this experiment. We just want to make sure that there's some salt in there as well. All right, so now we're going to put the small bag of yogurt into the large bag, and we're going to see it. And there we go. That's what it should look like. Okay, next step. We're going to be shaking our bag of yogurt and ice and salt for 15 minutes. Wow, that's a long time, right? But this step is super important in our experiment, so don't skip it. Because we are going to be shaking this bag for a while, it's the perfect time for a dance break, right? All right, so what you want to do, pause this video and take turns shaking and dancing with everyone in the house. I also have some of my favorite dancing songs with the word shake in it. So you can see on the screen, you can listen to these songs, or you can play your favorite songs to dance to. Just after 15 minutes, or when the yogurt in the small bag starts to feel a little solid, come on back to the video. So go ahead and pause and start shaking. Welcome back, and great job shaking and exercising. Now, I did want to tell you another way we can enjoy our snack is by turning them into popsicles. You can put the yogurt in a popsicle mold, or what I did was I put them in a small paper cup with a popsicle stick, and then you just stick it in the freezer. Just another way to enjoy your treat. But the fun thing about all that shaking is that you can actually see the food science happening right in front of your eyes. So as you were shaking, what was happening to the yogurt? It was freezing. The yogurt turned into a solid, right? So this is what we mean when we say freezing point. It's the point when a liquid turns into a solid. This freezing point is a temperature, the temperature that needs to be reached for a liquid to turn into a solid. Do you have any guesses what the freezing point of our frozen yogurt is? We're going to find out in just a second. But can you also think of a time where you saw a freezing point in your life? Well, in the winter, you might see some ice on the car window. That's because at night, the temperature gets so cold that it reaches the freezing point of water, and that water turns into ice. That's the same reason why we don't see ice on our cars in the summer. The temperature never gets to the freezing point because it's so warm. All right, so we saw that the yogurt was freezing, but what happened to the ice? It was melting, and it melted pretty quickly, didn't it? That's because the ice takes in the heat energy from its surroundings. So the ice is taking the heat from the yogurt, making the ice melt, and the yogurt getting colder and colder until it freezes. But like we said, that ice melted pretty quickly, didn't it? Quicker than normal. Do you know why? Because of the salt. Yes, salt actually lowers the freezing point of ice. This means that the temperature needs to be even colder than normal for the ice to stay a solid. Can you think of a real life example of how salt lowers the freezing point of ice? When it snows outside, we sprinkle salt on the roads and sidewalks so it doesn't turn into ice, right? Perfect. So hopefully your yogurt should be a solid now. So what you want to do is remove the small bag from the ice salt mixture. You want to also pat the bag dry on a kitchen towel just to make sure no salt gets into your yogurt. Otherwise, you're going to have a pretty salty dessert. So go ahead and scoop the frozen yogurt out of the bag and into your bowl. And I've already done that and got it into my bowl. So now it's time to measure the freezing point of your yogurt. Remember your guesses for the temperature? So let's go ahead and pull out our food thermometers again and check that number. Remember, you want it to go past that little dimple at the tip. So go ahead and stick that in your yogurt and let's see what you get. What numbers are you guys getting? All right, your thermometer should read around 32 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the freezing point, the point in which a liquid turns into a solid. 32 degrees is the typical freezing point. Now, your temperature might not be 32 degrees exactly, and that's okay. Any ideas why? Well, it could be that maybe it's a little warmer because of our hands. Also, yogurt isn't just plain water. It has some milk, some sugar, maybe some salt, and that can change the freezing point a little bit too. All right, it's time for the best time, snack time. Did anyone buy toppings for their frozen yogurt? What are your favorite toppings? So candies and chocolates are definitely yummy, right? But we just want to make sure we don't eat those every day or too often. They have too much sugar. Remember how we talked about sugar earlier in the class? What's a better choice for a topping for our frozen yogurt? I'll show you mine. Here we go. My favorite is fresh fruit. So fresh fruit, you can use so many different kinds. Like I have strawberries and blueberries, but you can also choose mango, pineapple, kiwi. The best part about fruit is that it's good for us. It has lots of vitamins and minerals and fiber to help keep our bodies growing strong. You can also choose other things like granola or some seeds. And we'll talk all about this and why this frozen yogurt is such a great snack for our bodies. So this here is called My Plate. Have you heard of it? My Plate shows how we should be eating at all of our meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My Plate also shows balanced eating. So balanced eating means we have all the food groups on our plate. So let's talk a little about My Plate, and then we can see how our frozen yogurt fits into balanced eating. So first, can you see that half of the plate is fruits and vegetables? Every time we eat, we want to try and make half of what we're eating fruits and vegetables. This is because fruits and vegetables have so many great things that help keep our bodies strong. They're called vitamins, minerals, fiber. They even have water. What's your favorite fruit? What about vegetable? What's your favorite vegetable? Great. So next you can see this corner of our plate is for grains. Grains give us energy that we need to learn and play. So we always want to have grains with our meals. What are some examples of grains that you can think of? Examples include rice, bread, pasta, even popcorn. Now here's something a little tricky. If you're eating corn, would you put that in the vegetables or in the grains? The grains. So when we eat corn or potatoes or green peas, we count them over there with the grains, not the vegetables. All right, so next, this corner of our plate down at the bottom is for protein. Do you know what protein does for our bodies? Protein helps us heal when we get bruises or cuts. It also helps our muscles stay strong after we run and play. Eating protein also keeps you feeling full and energized, so you're not always feeling hungry. That's why we want to make sure we have protein at our meals and with our snacks. What foods have protein? Meats, chicken, eggs, beans, seeds, and lentils. Those are all great sources of protein. Last up, we have dairy. Do you know an example of dairy? Milk, yogurt, and cheese. So our frozen yogurt is dairy. But guess what? Dairy also has protein. So our frozen yogurt belongs both to the dairy group and the protein food group. Do you know why dairy is good for our bodies? It helps us to have strong bones and teeth. So that's why our frozen yogurt snack is such a great snack for our bodies. It has protein to keep us full and heal our bodies. It also is dairy, so it helps us to have strong bones and teeth. And if you put toppings on your frozen yogurt like fruits, that makes it an even better snack. All right, we're all done. Congratulations. Not only did you learn some food science and some nutrition information, you also made a delicious and healthy snack. Awesome job. Did you have fun? Do you think you've learned something? Well, let's pull up those same questions from the beginning of the class and see how much we've learned. Again, question number 1. What temperature do you think the yogurt will turn into frozen yogurt? B, 32 degrees. Question number 2. What do you think the salt will do to the ice? A, melt the ice. Question number 3. What food group does yogurt belong to? B, protein. And question number 4, how can yogurt help us to be healthy? D, all the above. Yogurt helps us to grow your muscles nice and strong, heal your cuts and bruises, and keeps you feeling full and energized. Parents and teachers, if you enjoyed this activity for your kids, make sure you stay tuned for more upcoming Delicious Discoveries classes. Our next one will be all about hydroponics, where we'll explore if we can grow plants without soil. Before we go, even though this class is recorded, I would still love to see how much fun you and the kids had with this class. So whether it's a picture of the frozen yogurt or a picture of everyone shaking and dancing, the first 10 people to post their picture to our Healthy Living by Giant Facebook group will receive a Delicious Discoveries apron mailed straight to your house. I'm so excited to see what you all made and how you all enjoyed the class. So be sure to post those pictures for me. For more information, questions, and registration for upcoming Delicious Discoveries classes, please visit giantfood.com/nutrition. Have a great day.